We will now talk about solving quadratic equations. The first thing you need to do is recognize when something is quadratic. And we have here at the top a definition, and it says that a quadratic equation is an equation that can be written in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0, where a is not 0 and where a, b, and c are real numbers. Essentially what you need to know from this definition is that if your highest power on x is squared and you have no other variables, then that is going to be a quadratic equation. There are several different ways to solve quadratic equations. We can factor, we can use a zero method on our graphing calculator, and we can also use a quadratic equation. In this case, I want to show you an example that I would solve by factoring. To solve by factoring, the first thing I need to do is get 0 on one side. Well, I see that for this particular example, I already have 0 on one side of the equation. Then I need to factor the non-zero side. On this example, you can see that has also been done for us. And then finally, I need to set each factor equal to 0 and solve the result. So in this case, my first two steps have already been done. All that's left for me to do is to say 11c plus 6 equals 0, and then 5c minus 15 equals 0. If you have the product of two things equal to 0, then you know that one or the other, or possibly even both, must equal 0. So that's the reason we set the factors equal to 0. Now we are able to solve each one of these equations. So we'd subtract 6 over here. I'd have 11c equals negative 6, and then I would divide the 11. So in this case, I'd have c equals negative 6 over 11. For the other equation, I would add 15 over. That would result in 5c equals 15. Divide out the 5. And so in that situation, I'd have c equals 3. Generally speaking, for a quadratic equation, you are going to have two solutions or fewer. The only way you would have fewer is if you didn't have a real number solution, which is something we'll talk about in later sections, or if you have repeated solutions. We see that each one of these two solutions are unique. Okay. Online, the way that you will want to do this, they will give you an answer box, and I believe before the answer box they will actually have written in the problem the variable equals whatever, and then you have to type in your answer. And so in this case you'd have c equals negative 6 over 11, and then you separate your answers with a comma, and then you would have 3.